Okay. I do have a tiny autobiography, which is that I've done photography off and on ever since high school, like everybody, I suppose. I didn't get serious about it, though, until just, 6 years ago this month, when I bought my first digital camera. And there was something about the fact that I could go from seeing something to capturing an image of it without going through the intermediate chemistry and the time delay that appealed to me. I've finally begun thinking about why that is, actually with the help of a poet. There was a 20th century American poet named Louis Zukofsky, who had a little coterie of friends, and he called himself and his friends objectivists. And that term objectivist he thought of optically, actually. I've got the quote here. An objective, he says, rays of the object brought to a focus. And it seemed to me that, after I read that, which was quite recently actually, that's the advantage of digital photography, that you get the focus without the intermediation. My own photo hero, Edward Weston, tried that in the olden days. I mean, there's this thrilling passage in his day books, that's what he called them. The point at which he decided that to get maximum purity of image from then on, he was going to sign his name only on contact prints. He had to use enlargements just because he was always broke, and he had to do a lot of commercial work. But what Weston used for the photography he meant to last was an 8x10 view camera, which is an enormous box, has to fit on a tripod. And he made his own little tiny aperture out of black paper and stuck it inside the lens. I mean, it's black paper with a pinhole in it. It's f/64. And then he would take these 20-minute exposures to get absolute maximum sharpness, stop down that far. And then he would make a contact print. He would have, with his enormous camera, he got an enormous negative, which was 8x10 inches. And then he would put that in a contact printer, which is simply a little piece of, it's a spring frame with a piece of glass on it. You clamp the negative on top of your photographic paper and apply tension, and then just expose it to a light. Edward Weston used a plain old light bulb. And that's a contact print. It's called a contact print because the negative is in direct contact with the photographic paper. And so there's no loss at all with the enlargement. So he's cutting out as much of the optics as he can. He's getting as close as he can to the naked image. And what he was trying to do with all that was approach an idea of form. I have this little book. It's there's a photographic foundation which is called the Aperture Foundation, and it publishes little books about famous photographers. And here, this is the Edward Weston volume. And well, I guess you could gather in. I have a series of 3 pictures here. I mean, Aperture does. What we have here, you want to walk up close, or?
Just be centered, that's all.
Well, okay, I'll pass it around in a minute, okay? I've got tabs here. What I have here is a pair of seashells, one inside the other, one lying down, one up here. And it's against a plain black background, and what I see is a curve. And then the next item, just thanks to the editor here, we see the curve again, but it isn't seashells. It's a cabbage leaf. Just a plain old piece of cabbage. And Edward Weston is you're thinking about cabbage. Coleslaw, okay.
It looks like flowing locks.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. And then, of course, the next one in the sequence is human, and there's a photographer named Robert Adams who is intensely political and has a PhD in English, and he complains about Weston's images of the human. He says they're too cold and they're too formal, and it seems to me that Robert Adams is totally wrong about that. But here's the human with this curve again, and
that's not cold.
That's not cold.
No, that's not.
That's not cold. Yeah. This is his wife, Karis, by the way, is one of his wives. And she has a little anecdote which she tells about Weston's pursuit of purity. There's this picture, which is as simple as you can get. It's just grass, right, with the Pacific Ocean in the background, and that's it. Right? But Weston had to take these long exposures, and he plotted and planned this. He saw where the grass was, he saw where the ocean was, and then for days and days and days and days and days, he got up before dawn when the atmosphere is least windy, so that he could take a 5-minute or whatever exposure of this grass, and the wind was always blowing. It took him finally about a week to get this one little picture of the grass.
You wanted it straight instead of curved.
Yeah, and well, he wants, well, here, I've got
Still.
yeah, I've got tabs there, you can see. But yes, he wants every single spike, every single little organelle of the grass showing. And well, there's what I have an advantage over Edward Weston. No, I am not the photographer Edward Weston was. But what I do have is some equipment that he didn't have, which is digital. Well, I wanted to talk about this picture. This wasp visited me in my backyard, and she was flying around very slowly. I mean, I saw this insect going from leaf to leaf on the hibiscus plant, cutting circles out of the leaves quite slowly. And I went into the house and got the camera and changed the lens and went back out, and she was still at work. And so she let me take this picture. At that, the light wasn't particularly bright, and I certainly wasn't going to use flash on her. So it's a bit blurry. But if you get close here, you can see that I can do things thanks to the digital technology that Edward Weston couldn't do, which is capture motion, right? And I look at the wing here. You have to get close, and I'm not bragging. I'm just talking about just the amazing technology of this wing. You can see it's moving on all 3 axes: yaw, pitch, and roll. It's moving up, and it's moving in, and it's rotating. And then the slow shutter speed catches this sort of furling, ruffling motion of the wing as this bug flies along. And all of a sudden, I don't think the bug is insignificant anymore. And I think, well, thank you, digital photography. I think that's what I wanted to say finally, which allows us to get a bit closer to the image and cut out some of the technology in between. I think that was the end of my talk.
Well, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the other paintings that are here? Or
All right. Okay.
Not paintings. My mouth.
Well, if I can, this is my